Some of the smartest people you know are still struggling with money. They did well in school. They understand complex ideas. They can explain how systems work, how markets move, how the world really operates. They're not lazy. They're not ignorant. They're not careless. And yet, financially, nothing changes, month after month, year after year. This creates a quiet confusion, because from the time we're young, we're taught a simple story. Smart people succeed. Lazy people fail. If you study hard, you'll be fine. If you get good grades, money will follow, but real life doesn't work that way. Because money doesn't follow intelligence alone. Money follows behavior. And this is where things start to break down. Intelligence helps you understand the game. But wealth is built by how you play it. Some people know exactly what they should do: save more, spend less, invest early, take calculated risks, but they don't do it. Not because they don't understand, but because understanding and action are two very different things. Smart people often live in their heads. They analyze, they overthink. They wait for the perfect moment. They want certainty before moving. But money rewards movement, not perfection. While questions are being debated, time is passing. Opportunities don't wait for clarity. Markets don't wait for confidence. Life doesn't wait for a flawless plan. Another quiet trap is comfort. Intelligence often creates just enough success to feel safe. A decent job, a stable paycheck, a predictable routine. Not rich, but not desperate either. And comfort is dangerous because discomfort is what forces change. And smart people are very good at making comfortable situations feel rational. They say things like, "I'll start investing when I earn more. I need more research first. I'm not ready yet." All intelligent thoughts, all reasonable explanations. But while they're thinking, others are acting. Wealth isn't built by being the smartest person in the room. It's built by the person who consistently makes uncomfortable choices over a long period of time. Choices like delaying gratification, saying no to lifestyle upgrades, taking responsibility instead of blaming circumstances. This isn't about judging intelligence. Intelligence is powerful, but without discipline, without emotional control, without consistent behavior, it stays theoretical. And today, we're not here to shame anyone. We're here to understand the gap, because once you see that money follows behavior, not intelligence alone, you stop asking, "Why am I smart but still broke?" And you start asking the only question that actually matters. What am I doing every day that's keeping me here? Part 1. Smart people trust systems too much. Smart people believe in systems, and that belief usually starts early. School teaches them that if they listen carefully, follow instructions, and perform well on exams, the path ahead will be clear and predictable. And for a long time, that promise seems true. Good grades lead to good schools lead to respectable jobs, and respectable jobs offer something that feels safe: structure. Career ladders reinforce the same message. Show up on time, do your role well, stay patient, wait your turn. Retirement plans quietly seal the deal, promising that if you stay consistent, contribute regularly, and don't make mistakes, everything will work out eventually. So, smart people do exactly what they're told. They optimize for safety, they avoid risk, they wait for permission before moving. They assume effort will always be noticed and rewarded. And to be fair, the system does reward them, just not in the way they think. Systems are designed to be stable. They are built to keep organizations running smoothly, to reduce volatility, to produce predictable outcomes, and to protect against chaos. Stability is their priority, not wealth creation. Predictability is rewarded. Reliability is valued. Obedience is encouraged. Upside, on the other hand, is not. Upside is dangerous to systems because it introduces unpredictability. It creates outliers, exceptions, and people who don't fit neatly into predefined roles. So systems quietly discourage it. They don't forbid ambition, but they cap it. They don't ban creativity, but they contain it. They don't stop growth, but they slow it down. Smart people often mistake progress within a system for progress toward freedom. They get promoted. Their income rises slowly. Their responsibilities increase. From the outside, everything looks like it's working. But inside, something subtle happens. Their decisions become reactive instead of intentional. Their time becomes fully allocated. Their risk tolerance shrinks as obligations grow. They become dependent on the system they once trusted. And because smart people are logical, they rationalize this dependence. This is just how it works. I'll do this for a few more years. I can't afford to disrupt things now. Once I'm stable, I'll take chances. But stability has a hidden cost. It delays action until the window closes. The system doesn't fail smart people overnight. It does something quieter. It keeps them comfortable enough to stay, but constrained enough to never break free. They stay inside the lines long after the lines stop serving them. Not because they lack intelligence, but because the system trained them to believe that deviation is dangerous. Wealth rarely comes from following a script written by someone else. It comes from understanding where the system ends and where personal leverage begins. Smart people excel at optimizing within rules. Wealthy people learn when to step outside them. The difference isn't intelligence, it's awareness. Awareness that systems are tools, not guarantees. Awareness that effort does not equal upside. Awareness that safety and growth often move in opposite directions. Once smart people recognize this, something shifts. They stop waiting for permission. They stop assuming fairness. They stop believing the system owes them anything. They begin asking better questions. Where is my leverage? What compounds without my constant presence? What happens if this system changes or disappears? That moment of questioning is uncomfortable because it breaks a belief they were rewarded for holding their entire life. But it's also the moment where real progress begins. Because the system was never designed to make them wealthy, it was designed to keep them functioning, and understanding that difference is the first step towards stepping beyond it. Part 2. Intelligence can create overthinking. Intelligent people notice more. They see patterns others miss. They think several steps ahead. They can spot problems before they happen. That ability feels like an advantage, and sometimes it is. But there's a quiet downside no one talks about. Intelligence can create overthinking. Smart people don't just see one path. They see every possible outcome. They analyze the risks. They calculate the downsides. They imagine what could go wrong. They run scenarios in their head over and over. This feels responsible. It feels mature. It feels like preparation, but often it leads to the same place. Inaction. While others are moving, smart people are still thinking. While others are testing ideas, smart people are refining theories. While others are failing and learning, smart people are waiting for clarity. And the problem is this: clarity usually comes after action, not before it. Most progress in life doesn't come from perfect decisions. It comes from imperfect movement. Trying, failing, adjusting, trying again. But overthinking interrupts that cycle. Because when you see too many risks, every step feels dangerous. When you imagine every downside, doing nothing feels safer. So you wait. You wait for more information. You wait for confidence. You wait for certainty. But certainty rarely comes. Opportunities don't announce themselves when all the answers are available. They show up incomplete, unclear, uncomfortable, and they don't wait. They reward people who move with partial information, people who are willing to act before everything makes sense. This is why you'll often see less intelligent people get ahead. Not because they know more, but because they move faster. They don't need every angle analyzed. They don't need guarantees. They act, learn, and adapt in real time. Meanwhile, smart people can get stuck protecting their intelligence. They don't want to make the wrong move. They don't want to look foolish. They don't want to fail publicly, so they keep thinking. Overthinking doesn't look like fear, it looks like planning. It looks like research, it looks like caution. But underneath, it's still fear. Fear of being wrong. Fear of losing control. Fear of realizing that intelligence alone isn't enough. Action exposes uncertainty. Thinking hides from it. And in your 20s especially, this pattern can quietly waste years. Because the cost of a bad decision is usually recoverable. But the cost of never deciding compounds. You don't lose one opportunity. You lose momentum. Confidence. Learning speed. Movement builds clarity. Not the other way around. The smartest people eventually learn this. They stop asking, what's the perfect move, and start asking, what's the next move I can survive? They accept small, calculated mistakes. They value feedback over perfection. They trade certainty for progress because intelligence is only powerful when it's paired with action. Otherwise, it becomes a cage. And the people who escape it early aren't always the smartest in the room. They're the ones willing to move before they feel ready. Part 3. Smart people confuse knowledge with progress. Smart people love learning. They read books. They watch long podcasts. They save videos. They highlight pages. They understand a lot. And yet, their money doesn't move. Not because they're lazy, not because they're incapable, but because learning has quietly replaced action. Knowledge feels productive. You sit down. You consume information. Your brain lights up. You feel like you're improving your life. But when the day ends, nothing has actually changed. Your income is the same. Your habits are the same. Your risks are the same. Only your confidence in your understanding has grown. This is the trap. Smart people mistake clarity for progress. They say things like, I'm still learning. I'm not ready yet. I want to understand it fully first. And that sounds responsible. But deep down, it's fear wearing the mask of intelligence. Because knowledge is safe. Action isn't. Learning keeps you comfortable. Action exposes you to mistakes, to embarrassment, to loss. So the mind chooses the safer path. More information. You can understand money deeply and still live paycheck to paycheck. You can explain investing perfectly and never invest. You can know every rule of wealth and break none of your old habits. Because wealth doesn't reward awareness, it rewards behavior. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people don't need more information. They need implementation. They already know. They spend too much. They delay too long. They avoid discomfort. They don't need another book to confirm it. Smart people often over-prepare. They wait until they feel confident. They wait until conditions are perfect. They wait until risk disappears. But money doesn't wait. Opportunities move fast. They reward people who act early, not people who understand everything. Meanwhile, less smart people, they try. They mess up. They learn after acting. They adjust in real time. And slowly, they pull ahead. Not because they know more, but because they move faster. Learning should be a tool, not a shelter. If your knowledge doesn't change how you spend, save, invest, earn, then it's entertainment, not growth. Real progress looks boring. Small actions, simple systems, repeated decisions, not endless research. The wealthiest people don't know everything. They know enough, and then they act. And that's the difference. Part 4. They play defense too long. Smart people hate losing. Not just money, status, control, certainty. So they protect. They save carefully. They avoid risk. They double-check every move. They build walls before they build doors. From the outside, this looks responsible, safe, mature, intelligent. But protection has a hidden cost, because wealth doesn't grow in a bunker. Defense keeps you alive. Offense moves you forward, and smart people often stay in defense far too long. They focus on not making mistakes instead of making progress. They obsess over downside. What if it fails? What if I lose money? What if I'm wrong? So they wait. They wait for guarantees. They wait for perfect timing. They wait for certainty that never comes. Meanwhile, time keeps moving. Inflation doesn't wait. Opportunities don't wait. Compounding doesn't wait. Playing defense forever means never scoring. You can't win a game by protecting the goal and never taking a shot. And this is where intelligence quietly backfires. Smart people are excellent at risk detection. They can spot flaws instantly. They can see what might go wrong. They can imagine worst-case scenarios with frightening accuracy. But the skill that protects them also traps them. Because every opportunity looks dangerous when you only measure risk and never measure upside. Wealth isn't built by avoiding loss alone. It's built by taking calculated risk. Risk with rules. Risk with limits. Risk with a long-term view. But defense feels better emotionally. Saving money feels productive. Research feels productive. Waiting feels responsible. Growth feels messy. Growth involves uncertainty, mistakes, temporary losses, looking foolish. And smart people hate looking foolish, so they stay safe. They keep money parked. They keep skills underused. They keep ambition on pause. Not because they lack ability, but because they're protecting an identity. The identity of being smart. But here's the uncomfortable truth. You can protect yourself into stagnation. Security without expansion slowly becomes a cage. Your savings grow, but your life doesn't. Your knowledge increases, but your income stays the same. Your confidence shrinks because deep down, you know you're not playing to win. Defense has its place. You need it early. You need it during instability. You need it to survive. But wealth is built when defense turns into offense, when saving turns into investing, when learning turns into execution, when caution turns into calculated action, not reckless moves, not gambling, intentional offense. Smart people don't fail because they're careless. They fail because they stay protected long after it's time to advance. And the moment you realize this, everything changes. You stop asking, how do I avoid losing? And you start asking, how do I position myself to win, even if it means being uncomfortable for a while? Because wealth doesn't reward those who never lose. It rewards those who stop hiding behind defense and finally step into the game. Part 5. Ego gets in the way. Smart people often build their identity around intelligence long before they realize the cost of doing so. From a young age, they're praised for being quick learners, for understanding things faster than others, for getting it without much explanation. And over time, that praise hardens into something heavier, an expectation they carry into adulthood. They're not just someone who learns well. They're someone who is supposed to know. So when failure appears, it doesn't feel like feedback. It feels like a threat to identity, to reputation, to the version of themselves they've spent years protecting. Trying something new suddenly carries a hidden risk. If they struggle, people might notice. If they ask questions, they might look unprepared. If they start from the bottom, it might feel like a step backward. Ego steps in quietly and frames caution as intelligence. It whispers things that sound reasonable. You should already understand this. If you were really capable, this wouldn't be hard. Wait until you're more prepared. Don't put yourself in a position where you look inexperienced. So smart people delay. They research endlessly instead of acting. They polish plans instead of testing them. They stay in familiar environments where their competence is never questioned. And from the outside, this looks like patience or discipline. But internally, it's fear dressed up as logic. Wealth has no interest in protecting ego. It doesn't reward being right early. It doesn't care how intelligent you sound. It doesn't ask whether something feels dignified. It only responds to learning speed, adaptability, and willingness to be wrong in public before getting it right in private. Most opportunities that change a person's financial trajectory begin in a place of discomfort. A skill you don't fully understand yet. A market you don't have mastery over. A room where you're not the smartest person. People with fragile ego avoid these places. Not because they can't succeed there, but because they don't want to feel small again. But humility is not weakness, it's leverage. The people who win long-term are often the ones willing to look inexperienced early, to ask basic questions without embarrassment, and to accept temporary incompetence as the price of future competence. They don't confuse ignorance with identity. They separate who they are from what they know. So when they fail, they don't internalize it. When they don't understand something, they don't hide. When they're behind, they don't pretend otherwise. They move forward anyway. Ego demands protection. Humility creates momentum. One keeps you safe in the short term. The other opens doors over time. Smart people sometimes lose years protecting an image that produces no return. Wealthy people are more interested in progress than perception. They're willing to be the beginner. They're willing to ask for help. They're willing to sit quietly and learn while others perform competence. They understand something most people resist accepting. Looking foolish for a short period is a small price to pay for not being stuck forever. Ego wants to preserve comfort. Wealth requires growth, and growth demands a willingness to be uncomfortable, misunderstood, and occasionally wrong without letting it define you. The moment ego loosens its grip, learning accelerates. Opportunities expand, feedback becomes useful, and movement replaces hesitation. Because wealth doesn't reward who you think you are, it rewards who you're willing to become. So if this helped you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear this. Stay focused, stay consistent, and keep building a future you'll be proud to look back on. Your journey continues from here.